But there are certain type of people who like you can ask a question that gets more emotional. There's certain type of people you can ask a question that's more intellectual, more spiritual. Some people maybe, I don't know, you're like, oh, what's your controversial opinion? Like, oh yeah, because they're like someone who likes to debate or something, or like, or some people who just like to talk about their passions and hobbies. And so I think something I've been trying to figure out is how can I discern from meeting somebody within a couple minutes, like what question would light them up.
Quickly though, before this episode starts, I've got a 10-second favor that I'd like to ask you. The majority of people watching this podcast haven't yet hit the follow button. I can't tell you how much it helps. The show gets bigger, which means we can increase our production and also allows us to bring in some of the best guests that you want to see while allowing us to continue to do the thing that we love. Thank you so much for your time. Eric, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Where are we at the moment?
I am living in Manhattan, New York City, in the Flatiron District neighborhood.
I love New York. We're just saying off air how special of a city is. It's very inspiring.
There's a lot of magic here. Yeah, it's I moved here 7 years ago, originally from California. Also thought it would be like a 2-year stint or something, and then now I'm here, and I'm not sure when I'm going to leave.
I love it. What, as a content creator, what impact has New York had on your ability to be a content creator?
I mean, it's everything. I don't think I would have been a content creator if I didn't come here. Originally worked in finance and never really had a true interest or passion in finance. Knew that it probably wasn't my thing, but I didn't know like what I kind of wanted to do or creatively. And once I moved to New York, the rawness of the city just kind of, it just sparks your imagination. It even just like running through the city, it just gets me going. Seeing the people, the little micro interactions you have, the wide gamut of life that exists in New York, the ugly, the beautiful, the good, the bad, the good, the bad, the good, the ugly, the beautiful. But it started for me at the start of the pandemic. Was unemployed at the time, and I think the pandemic for a lot of people was a time of like reflection on like what's most important to us and what's more important to you. And I kind of came to a realization of like, man, finance is not important to me. I don't feel like this is the kind of type of impact I want to make on the world. And so once I kind of started thinking about the type of impact I wanted to make on the world, and then also believe that it might be possible, something in me was like a really small voice of like, start a YouTube channel. And I was like, it was just like, it's like a soft, it wasn't like, I had a 12-step vision plan and it was just like, I just start a YouTube channel. So I've always enjoyed video and filmmaking. It was like a little side hobby passion of mine for a long time, but never really knew how to kind of like make that my main thing. I didn't want to be like a film director. I wasn't like a screenwriter or anything, but I enjoy making videos, enjoy storytelling, enjoy making people feel something. And so then during the pandemic, was unemployed, had a bunch of time, and then just started making videos. And then the environment of the city, the opportunities, the people, I think that's really what it is. It's the people of the city kind of has just enlarged my content, and I'm kind of just following. It's been a constant evolution, and I'm just kind of following that journey.
Yeah, brilliant. Just following your curiosity where it leads you. Can lead you down many places in that city.
Yeah. There's no shortage of anything. You can, whatever you want, it exists in New York City. You just have to be willing to go get it.
Well, before we dig further in, I'd love to get a bit of a feel of kind of who you are, what you do, and how you contribute to the world. What would that sound like in a bit of an elevator pitch? I mean, you've kind of briefly touched on it, but why?
So for me, my faith is important to me. It's not something that's always been important to me, but I'm I'm Christian by faith, and that was also something that grew in New York City. So I think with that in mind, I view myself as someone who's trying to um, seek what he thinks is the greatest truth uh, in God, and just trying to follow God, and trying to just do some good, I guess. Maybe reverse some of the not so great stuff that's happening in the world. And I think for me, I've always enjoyed healing people, and I'm kind of more of a getting into the feelings, get into like the deep stories stuff, and hopefully making something that helps people like tap into a deeper part of them, or inspires them, or just gives them hope. And so
Mm.
I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do and trying to figure out how to do.
I mean, you've had some great success so far. Like some of your videos have resonated with me, and um, you can tell that what you do comes from a place of deep love
Hmm.
and curiosity, and that really shines through. Um, so, how have you found that content has helped to heal people? You mentioned that briefly. Have you had any anecdotes or any really special moments that have kind of made you take a step back?
Yeah, I mean, for the people I'm interviewing, definitely have had a lot of healing moments, to the extent that they're willing to be vulnerable with me. Um, Honestly, I think a lot of the healing just happens from my holding space for them.
Mm.
There is one woman, and this has still been kind of like my most impactful video in terms of like its impact on me, and maybe the impact on others as well. But it was a woman who I just met outside my apartment on my stoop, and she had lost her son in a shooting
Mm.
in, I think, Brooklyn 2 years ago.
I saw
And
that video.
yeah, and she was still kind of wrestling with all of that. And the videos that I know are gonna do well, or I know the interviews are gonna do well, like they're hot just from the get go. Like it just clicks from the get go. It's just like
Mm.
all I gotta do is just press record, and then the person is just like, some people are just are waiting to be talked to, and she just
Mm.
let all her stuff out, and she had a lot of pain. She had a lot of losing her son to a senseless shooting, and having no one to really talk to her about it. Right, like that's so I think it just, the healing part is like letting her um, let it out, but I think the actual healing kind of happens through the grace of God, through life. I don't know. It's not really, I'm not really the actual like healer, but certainly like maybe I
You're the
open.
conjurer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
initiator.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you have kind of a specific example of a moment that has really kind of just been etched into your brain?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, like with that woman, praying for her was a very touching moment. So like I'll always try to pray for people, or not always, but I will when it feels like the right thing to do in the moment. A specific moment. This is interesting because like it's interesting when you ask someone for a specific thing, it suddenly creates this pressure. Because I do this all the time in my interviews, where I'm like, "What's your favorite movie? What's the worst thing that's ever happened?" And it's just like, oh shit, like, because then you're trying to like, for people who think
You're
a
being
lot.
called out.
Yeah. Or it's just like there's so many possibilities I don't even know where to start. And
Just
so
start by starting.
I think it's just a bunch of different little micro moments. People who struggle with loneliness. A lot of it, I think, is everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people I talk to are struggling with like core issues of like not feeling like they're good enough, running away from past problems. Um, a lot of it's rooted in like difficult upbringings.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I can't really think of. I could think of like five specific little different things, but nothing's like kind of standing out right now.
So it's been a lot of micro moments that have just shifted you in a direction.
Yeah, and part of me wonders if over time I've kind of become desensitized to them a little bit because,
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of get used to it.
Well, it's a fine line, isn't it? I mean, especially when you're dealing with challenging conversations, it's kind of like a doctor or a nurse.
Mm,
At some point, you can't get caught up in the drama because it can just break you. So you need to
yeah.
be able to hold space, but also not get caught up in it. How have you gone about doing that?
How have I gone about doing that? Well, I think naturally I'm someone who can just within my wiring kind of stay composed in situations. I don't necessarily try to prevent myself from feeling the thing because oftentimes some of the best interviews come from when my heart is touched, and so I wanted to allow that to happen because that's when like my curiosity, my compassion, my empathy are just maxed out. Is when I'm like my heart's in it.
Hmm.
Um, but certainly, if I notice, yeah, I guess I don't. I don't try to hold back. I try to feel as much as I can. I don't. I can't
Yeah.
really think of a situation whereby like I'm hearing something and um, my feeling what they're saying is going to be detrimental to the interview. I think it's always been like even as that woman's talking about her son getting shot or like her finding out about how her son was killed on a Facebook page. I want to be in there with her.
Hmm.
Um, and I think just naturally I'm able to do it in a way where like I'm not crying with her because then the interview would not be very good.
Hmm.
So that's not something I have to worry about.
Hmm. Okay. For sure. For sure. Do you think that ability to kind of hold space but also detach like has come from your early years? Like what about your upbringing and kind of developmental years has got you to the point where you can be a good interviewer?
I think it's two things. So one kind of more innate is, and maybe this ties in with my faith, is kind of just seeing the big picture, keeping that in mind. Um,
And what is the big picture?
that shit happens.
Yeah.
It's part of life, and people are not perfect. And so when they're revealing something about themselves that it's like not the best thing, and I'm just like, so what? Like, it
Mm.
is what it is. And so I think that it just doesn't, it doesn't phase me as much. Um, and then in terms of like personal life experiences, I think um, I can't empathize with every single person I'm talking about because I've never lost a son. I don't have a son, but I have lost a loved one before in the form of like a breakup. And so, like, I think pain has been a way that has allowed me to connect with others
Mm.
and allowed me to um, be able to ask the right questions because I know what they're going through,
Mm.
which is difficult because sometimes I'm like, damn, I don't know what this is like. Yesterday, I was talking with this woman who is just going through therapy and kind of going through like a life discovery, life refinement phase, and she's talking about how her mother was like a narcissist and like would say stuff like "I love you," but then her actions wouldn't really reflect that, and so she grew up with this whole like not being able to trust love. And I'm
Mm.
just like, damn, like I didn't have that. My parents, weren't perfect parents, but they loved me and I believed it and it was fine. And so like, yeah, I don't know. There are limits. Um, and so that's something I've been trying to figure out is because if that was something I had gone through, like I feel like the interview could have gone better or not gone better, but yeah, the interview could have gone better. The conversation could have gone deeper.
Mm.
Um, but I think that's just something that I had to accept that I'm not going to be able to empathize with every single human experience.
Mm. What? How does empathy impact your guests and impact your ability to be an interviewer?
If I don't have empathy, it's hard to stay engaged in the conversation. Um, if I don't have context of understanding what this person's talking about, it's hard for me to be engaged. It's hard for me to be curious. I was talking with a guy who was an encryptions expert. That was his job. And I was just like, what the, like, I don't know, dude. Like I was, and the question I'm just asking is just like, oh, what's the craziest thing you've encrypted? But like, I don't know.
He's like, I created Bitcoin.
Yeah, or like it didn't hit that nerve for him, and
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's challenging, and you have to just accept that it's challenging. Do you have any strategies that you use when there are challenging interviews to get more out of it? Do you have any like little tools in a toolbox that you go, oh, we're going to apply this one now and see how we go?
I should. I've recently realized I should be more methodical about my interviews. I most of the time just go out and wing it, which is magical too, because it has these incredible conversations, that kind of whatever. But some things I've been thinking about. I think there are different types of people. That is the most. That doesn't mean anything.
Go on.
As I'm like, the words are coming in my mouth, I'm like, that offers no value. But there are certain type of people who like, you can ask a question that gets more emotional. There's certain type of people you can ask a question that's more intellectual, more spiritual. Some people maybe, I don't know. You're like, oh, what's your controversial opinion? Like, oh yeah, because they're like someone who likes to debate or something, or like, or some people who just like to talk about their passions and hobbies. And so I think something I've been trying to figure out is, how can I discern from meeting somebody within a couple minutes, like what question would light them up? I have not been doing.
That's a hard. What have you ever tried just asking, hey, what lights you up?
Yeah. Like what do you deeply care about?
Yeah.
They're going to start talking about their children. I'm going to be like, oh, boring. No, that's always a good one. Yeah. Passions. My goal is, if I can get to a point where 50% of the interviews I do are stuff I can use and just it's just like a good conversation, I think that would be success. But yeah, just figuring it out as I go.
Yeah, I think we all are. What are some core principles of interviewing that you might be able to instill in others if they wanted to become an interviewer? We've got empathy. That's a good start.
You want to make the person feel comfortable. I think that's probably the most important thing.
How do you do that?
Smile.
That's it? It's a nice smile. Yeah.
Be gentle.
Yeah.
It's a balance between letting them have the spotlight and letting them kind of talk and do the things they want to do, while also kind of like, yeah, let's go this way. Respect, non-judgment. And then once I'm in the conversation, it's just like, try to be as present as possible. I think curiosity is really a core principle of interviewing, because curiosity is a very pure feeling. When a little kid comes up to you and he's like, why is the sky blue? Or like, what does that fruit taste like? Like, there's something in you that wants to satisfy their curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a desire to know something from a place of just wanting to know. The root word for curiosity, like the Latin root word for curiosity, is care. So to be curious,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so to be curious means to be like intrinsically caring about something. And so I think when you're with that little boy, he's like caring about that fruit. But when you're talking with a person, you're being curious, there's a level of care that underlines that curiosity. It means that like, hey, what is that like? Like I to a certain extent care about you, which is why I'm curious about this thing. And I think once that happens and it's like genuine curiosity and I'm like genuinely curious what that's like, I'm not always genuinely curious, but when it's genuine curiosity, they can feel it. And then we're just kind of on a journey together. And then 10 minutes later, they're like, how did I just say all that stuff? And I'm like, dude, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I'm just here. I'm just the conduit of this.
It's like together we've created this moment together. We created this thread, this conversation that otherwise would not have existed. And in a way, it goes beyond the both of us.
Yeah, definitely. And the ability to then blast that out to the whole world is a really, really special, interesting moment in time. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's magical as I'm talking about it, but then like the reality is that it's a grind. It's a grind.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it all can be a grind, you know. It's not all. I feel like life as a whole is just a grind peppered with moments of bliss.
It's like, true. I think if you can love like a little bit of the grind, you're in a good place.
Yeah. How have you gone about loving the grind when it comes to building content and editing videos and finding guests, etc.?
I think resting is important. So when it starts to feel like I'm really pushing, this is tricky. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to push, and then those are the moments I should be pushing. And then sometimes I'm like, no, actually, you should pull back. So I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. But editing, I inherently enjoy. Luckily, so I could edit for hours on end and not really bat an eye. The interviewing can sometimes be difficult because, you know, I'm more of an introverted person. It's draining for me to go out there, walk around with your camera, see a person. Should I talk? Should I ask them for an interview? I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Excuse me. And then they just like walk by, ignore you. Fuck. That hurts. Okay. It's all good. Keep going. Keep going. Talk to another person. Nah, they're not interested. Okay. Keep going. Talk to another person. And so it's like at least when I go on interviewing, it's like a mind game, and it's like me against me. And sometimes I don't win. Sometimes I go like, all right, I'm going home.
Yeah, we'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll try again tomorrow. Like the vibe's just not right. I'm not in a good place. Like I'm not gonna have the good interview. Energy's not good. And then some days like I go out and it's just like
hitting.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think is your energy?
I'm not sure.
I wonder. I wonder if like especially for the podcast on my end, I've become more and more conscious of the way that like my mental intention flows out in the way I feel in my body, which then flows out into the world around me. And I'm working on trying to cultivate this space of just like love and empathy and just kind of just mentally putting that out into the conversations that I'm having long before that empathy and love and interest is reciprocated.
Yeah.
And so far, it seems as though majority of conversations eventually, sometimes it might take 2 minutes, sometimes it might take 20 minutes, half an hour. Eventually, it begins to come back. So I wonder if there's a way of, you know, maybe this is just me spitballing here, but, you know, using your faith and visualizing the love, like God's love and care and consideration flowing through you as a conduit into your interviews. And then it might just take you out of being Eric and into whatever you are in that moment for that person. And then maybe there might be more success consistently. This is just completely me spitballing.
Yeah. I do try to do that, right? Like, yeah, I think I'm trying to grow into that more. I'm not a naturally like enthusiastic person, maybe. The best word. But yeah, certainly I think that's a place I can grow, but it's It's different when it's a random person on the street
Yeah.
that they're just going about their day. They didn't wake up thinking they're about to do this interview, and then all of a sudden you're in this interview together, and it's cold and it's windy, and people are walking around, and people are looking at you. It's just like it's a little bit difficult. So sometimes it's hard to feel God's love in that moment. You know, sometimes it's just like, what the fuck am I doing outside? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Those are the moments. Those are the tests.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. But I
Yeah.
think also sometimes a lot of it's dependent on the other person's energy too.
Yeah.
And some people, if you find the right person, you guys are clicking. Maybe I went in with not the best energy, and then I leave like great. So that's why I'm saying I'm not sure how much of it is my energy and how much it is if it's just like luck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if a person is completely closed off to the idea, it's highly unlikely you're going to open them up. So, and I think that's a part of just accepting. It's a part of the game.
Yeah.
How have you gone about creating connection with strangers? Like, well, especially in New York, it's a fucking like place is wild. You know, people tend to stick to themselves. They don't really want to be talked to a lot of the times. So it's a wonderful but also a challenging place for you to then go up to strangers and try and build connection with. So what kind of things have you done to just make it happen?
Try to keep my heart open, which isn't always easy because I also like to keep it closed. But I think there are moments when I can feel, oh, this is a particularly vulnerable moment, and it's like, okay, do I go there or do I not? And so, I think another thing is, and this is something that I kind of learned over time, is just like learning to talk with people as just as people. Just try to make it as normal as possible. Assume we're already friends, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not always able to connect with people. I think right now I'm in a state of in this new year, this past month, like winter in New York, feeling kind of still creatively, and like going on interviews has been difficult with the winter, and so right now I'm being like particularly more. My energy feels a little bit more like judgmental on myself, like hard on myself a little bit. So maybe I don't know if that's coming out, but I have been like trying to be more intentional and methodical about my interviews, and like, because, I think I was previously in a place of like, I don't know what the frick I'm doing. But then now it's like, oh, okay, this stuff is working. How do we replicate success more consistently? I think that's the question. Once you find something that works, it's art though, at the end of the day, especially when you're approaching random people on the street. So, but I think part of, maybe it's like the business part of me is like trying to figure out how I can replicate it more consistently.
That's a tough question to answer. Humans are very complex and no two are alike. So when you figure it out, let me know.
I know. It's so valuable though. I think that's the piece where if you can get better at that, you have a chance of making a, not a career out of this, but just like this could actually lead somewhere.
Without having, the success that you have, from what I can understand, and maybe you already know this, maybe it might resonate with you. The art comes from volume, right? So you have to weed through the trash to get to the nuggets that become the things that work. And for every 10 bad interviews is one good interview, but you have to get through the 10 bad ones to get to the good one.
I know. Yes. Yes.
Have you read The War of Art?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that resistance, that cold, wintry resistance.
But it's not just resistance. It's also like wanting to be smarter about how I do the things. I
So
don't
how
want
have you gotten smarter
I don't
over
know. I
time with
don't know
this?
if I have.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you are right. It's just keep going. That's always the answer. Just keep going. But yeah, just keep going. I feel like each time my content has evolved has been less about me being strategical or intentional about it, and more just it just kind of happened.
Well, how long have you been doing these interviews and videos for before it started to actually connect? Because it seems like there's I'm in the long, slow road right now of doing this and not getting that much feedback from the world around me.
Yeah.
And it's a bloody grind sometimes.
Why are you doing it?
I'm doing it because I know inside of me that let's take a step back. I've been asked this question multiple times in the last few podcasts. So what I realized maybe like 5 years ago is that people that I spend significant amounts of time with in my life, it fundamentally shifts them for the positive majority of the time. So just by way of proxy, by way of just my like energy in the world, or things that little things I might say over time, or just moments where I've said something off the cuff and it's just hit them in a way, and then I hear 3 months later that I've had multiple people just change their lives off the back of random things that I've just said. And I've gone, oh shit, all right, there's something here. How do I tap into this more? How do I share? How do I hopefully create more of these positive changes in the world around me? So that led me to, okay, it's probably worth starting to create content. And then I said to myself, I can't be fucked doing short form stuff, but I can talk and I can listen. So maybe the podcast is the next best step. So that's it. So basically, to answer your question, it's to hopefully scale my ability to connect with people and create lasting change in the world around me at scale.
That's really interesting. Wouldn't then it be if your logic, if your vision is that your sustained presence in an environment will improve that environment or improve the people around you, shouldn't you just like do vlogs or something, or just because like if you're talking to other people, it's not necessarily your presence that comes out. It maybe a little bit, but not as strong.
Yeah, you're probably right, and maybe that'll be the next iteration. I have a lot of ideas for individual episodes that I haven't begun to action yet, but I think it will eventually get to that point as well. I do like the idea. And the other part of it was that I do have a network of just really, really interesting, curious people that I want to learn about. And if I want to learn about it and then I'm curious about them, then I'm sure it will resonate with other people. And yeah, I don't have an answer to that question in detail, but yeah, you're probably right in some respects for sure.
No, I think you're right where you're supposed to be sure, because you're following your kind of creative instinct, and then you just keep doing that, and it'll lead you somewhere. But just based off what you said, that's what kind of stuck out to me. Though I think like it's still possible, because like you look at Joe Rogan, and he certainly has his kind of presence and ideas kind of coming out during the interviews. Andrew Huberman.
Yeah, there's definitely an angle to each individual interviewer. And it comes back to kind of presence and curiosity, right? Like so far in the conversations I have, I'm in control of the direction we take it. And in that control, it leads to me asking questions that I resonate with.
Right.
And if I'm resonating with them and other people tend to resonate with the ideas that I have, then by proxy, someone will resonate with the ideas that these people have.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's very true. Because it's like people don't realize this, but like the content that I make, like that we're making, we're asking the questions. So in a way, we're kind of um, the content that's being made is like the stuff we're trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a video where the messaging is contrary to what I believe.
Mm.
So
What would
actually,
come off as inauthentic, right?
or I would just not want to make it because I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. But if somebody says something, I'm like, oh, I agree, and then I'll make something out of there, right? So I guess in a way, I take back what I say about like the interviewer not be able to put his presence on. Actually, in a way, like yeah, that's so interesting. He really is putting his presence on through the conversation and the questions that he's asking
Well, I guess,
because he's leading it.
yeah. Yeah. Like I'm the painter at the end of the day, and you are the beautiful goddess being painted. Paint me like one of those French girls. It's
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Nice. It feels nice to be the subject every once in a while.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, yeah, going back to there are a couple of questions I wanted to tap into. Going back to, that question of how long were you doing these videos for before they started to connect?
Oh yeah, yeah. First 2 years were tough. First 2 years were like spending a lot of time on videos that didn't go anywhere. I originally started with YouTube, and I was making like 10-minute long videos that were more kind of like documentary vlogs about like my dating life, because that's the only thing I really knew to talk about at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd spend like 100 hours on this video, and it would get like 100 views, and that's painful. And then I eventually started like doing these interviews with people and realizing like, oh, okay, this is a way I could kind of create content without spending 100 hours on one video. And then started going to shorts, and shorts was really interesting because it was a learning experience of like repeated storytelling. And because like with a long video you get one shot, right, and you learn how to tell a story in a longer period of time, but the feedback points is like once every month or two. With shorts, it's like I'm learning every week. Oh, don't do this, do that, don't do this. So it's like it really kind of refined my storytelling, particularly as it pertains to like internet storytelling, which is like get to the point, like don't mess around. Like people are very, very short attention spans, that kind of stuff. But I guess this is all to say that like if you feel it in your heart to do this thing, which if you last many years and you do, right? Because like that first couple of years of it was like refinement. It was like me getting better at storytelling, me getting better at filmmaking, me getting better at interviewing and telling stories, and that was all really necessary. It was also me like shedding some of my ego stuff of like being so attached to views and what people thought about me and that kind of stuff. Because like in the beginning, I was not getting any accolades, and so all of those things were important for me to succeed now. Because if I was still attached to accolades, if I didn't know how to tell stories, if I if I was just a one trick pony or whatever, then I wouldn't have sustained growth. So like those the first couple of years, there was a lot of like me like sitting in my room late at night staring into the moon and being like, God, where is this leading? Like what are we doing, that kind of stuff. But when it
What
came
kept
down
you
to
going?
when it came down to it, I just love what I just love it. So it came out to the point where it was like, man, even if nobody watches this, even if nobody would ever, the conversations I'm having with the people, the process of making it and the way it makes me feel alive, like that was enough. But then, you also do want your content to like resonate with people, right? That's an important part of art too. So, and that's important because then I began to learn like, oh, this is what people like, and this is like how to make it better. So yeah, it's a whole process.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, I'll come back to you in 2 years once this is probably, we've done 30, I think we've released like 33 episodes. So my goal initially was to get to 20, because I read somewhere that 20 podcasts is in the top 1% of podcasts. So I was like, That's it. I'm not stopping until 20. And we got to 17 and my co-host quit. So I had to figure it out and find a way to do the edits and do the edits cheaply because, I'm not made of money and this thing's going to take a long time to grow. But luckily for me, a really good friend of mine is full-time in content. He'll listen to this and he'll probably chuckle as he's editing, but a really good friend of mine said, yeah, I back you. And he's come in as a percentage partner on it. He's doing all the edits and he's a complete jet when it comes to this stuff. So now it's really, really, really amazing because now I can focus on getting guests and just making the most banger interviews possible and just, downloading information from other podcasts, just like getting the ideas so great and then passing them on to him and then he just rolls it out. So
he's watching like say an hour-long interview and then what editing is he doing?
Yeah, he's editing. He'll cut it shorter. He'll make the shorts. He'll upload. So
okay,
yeah,
kind of taking out the little digressions that don't kind of go anywhere, maybe, or the empty spaces and stuff.
It makes like the trailers and then posts and just kind of provides good feedback. It's just nice to bounce off people as well. Yeah. Have you made this a full-time career now? Like, is it at the point where you're doing this full-time?
I am. It's not a full-time salary, but but I started doing it full-time about 3-4 months ago. Yeah.
How do you get it to a full-time salary?
More followers.
Is it just, what happened? Like, I don't understand the monetization side of this business very well, especially on short form.
You just have to make really good stuff. Your art and your craft have to be really good that you get more followers and then you get more views and then sponsors want to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it still basically is a sponsorship and eyeballs game.
Yes. But something I've learned is to not make that the focus because that's actually not the focus. The focus is on the actual stuff. And then once the stuff is good, everything else will fall into place. Yeah,
for sure. For sure. It's a fine line to try and maintain, right? When you got to eat. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I think like even in interviews, when I'm in the middle of the interview, it's like, you can't completely ignore it. The commercial part of it.
For sure. I came across this this quote that resonated with me a little while ago that said, don't try and make your art support you. Find ways that you can support your art. Like, find ways to do things that allow you to support the art itself. So I've begun to change the way I approach this. And now I'm like, all right, cool. I don't want or expect anything out of this outside of just it connecting with people. So how can I frame my life in a way that allows me to do this for as long as possible? We'll see where that goes. As opposed to like, oh, we need a sponsor. We need to do this. We need to do this. And we need to hit X, Y, Z. And could be the wrong approach. I don't know, but we'll find out.
No, it's the right approach. It's like it's a very kind of spiritual approach to art. I'm in the middle of like Artist's Way, this book called Artist's Way with
Julia Cameron.
Yeah.
I emailed her, asked her to come on the podcast. She said no.
Dude, at least she got back to you.
Yeah, one of her staff got back to me.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
I mean, maybe she doesn't do interviews. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think she just strike me as a podcast type. Like, she's a little bit. I don't know how old she is.
Yeah, she'd be in her 60s, I'd say.
Yeah.
Have you done the morning pages?
Yep. I do the morning pages. I've been doing them. Yeah. It's been good. Yeah. I type them though, because to write 3 pages by hand will take me like an hour, and I don't have time to do an hour. If I type, I can do it in 30 minutes.
For the listeners, do you want to explain what morning pages are?
Yeah. So first thing you do in the morning, ideally before you even check your phone, but I do check my phone just for a couple minutes. But after that, hop on in front of my computer, I have Google Doc, and then it's just stream of consciousness writing. So don't think too much, and whatever comes to mind. For me, it's been either one of two things. Either it just turns into a journal and I'm just processing something that happened or something I'm thinking through relationally or about my life. And then sometimes it might turn into like, oh, this is an idea I have for like some creative idea that I kind of just explore. And I think what I try to do is pull out little nuggets of wisdom that kind of come out because if you don't write it down, you kind of just stay at a certain level of depth in your thought, right? Because you're not able to, once you have it down on paper, you're like, you kind of move up to different levels because you've written it down and you don't have to keep coming back to the same level when you're in your mind. When I'm in my mind, I'm just like kind of in this area, but by putting it down on paper, I'm able to keep
created the scaffold.
Yeah. And then get to that, hopefully, maybe not necessarily the deepest truth, but like a more, oh, okay, this is actually what this is about. I thought this was the issue. No, it's actually this. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I came across it and I've been on and off doing it. At the moment I'm doing it, but I'm doing like one A4 page. Just I feel like as opposed to doing 3 and not doing it, if I start with 1 and make sure I do it pretty much every day, I'm guessing the way it'll work is 1 will become 1.5 one day and then 1.5 will become 2 the next day. And eventually I'll get it up to where it needs to be. But I've never done it on the computer, so maybe I should give that a go.
The other great thing about the computer is that it makes it easy to look at past entries. Which
isn't the point of it not to look back, never look at it again?
That's what she says, and I think that's good. But I have no judgment on myself. I can go back and look at my past work and not feel like, oh, that was shitty, or I want to look at the past stuff to see the growth and the change. I think she says, my understanding of why she says just like let it out is because a lot of people have writer's block and they're afraid to kind of express themselves.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No one's going to see my Google Doc, so I don't care.
Do you
also,
think
I'm not a writer.
Yes, you never know. You never know where this might take you.
Right.
I wonder if the process of knowing you might read back on it makes you curate what you're saying to yourself even. I think maybe that was part of the idea as well. That if you never see it again, you don't curate it and it just is.
And that would incentivize people to be more honest.
Yeah, honest and getting the cobwebs out, the real cobwebs out.
I've been journaling for so long now that I think that that's not an issue for me anymore. I have like a Google Doc of journaling from all the way, kind of more seriously started doing it since 2019. I think it wasn't even that long, like 4 or 5 years, but like, I think I've looked enough at my own shit to be like, whatever, man.
Yeah, it's all part of the fun.
And I want it to be out there, right? If it's not out, then I won't know about it. I'd rather know about it than like hide it.
For sure. There was one question I wanted to ask you, just going back on your interviewing process before we move on, but it's not necessarily an interviewing process, but it's around it. You talked about rejection a lot, and how over time have you improved your ability to accept rejection? Like, what are you doing? What goes through your head now that didn't?
Gosh, there's so many things. One is repeated exposure.
Exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy, yeah. Because you don't know you're not okay with rejection until you get rejected. And you actually go through that ego pain and you're like, oh, okay, this is what that's like. So that gives you an opportunity to begin to work with it. A lot of it's understanding where the other person is coming from. Not so that you don't take it personally. I think I'm the only child, have a tendency to be a little self-focused sometimes. So rejection can sting particularly because I'm like, I just internalize it. It's like,
why don't they love me?
Yeah, it's like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, they got their own stuff. You don't have to be loved by everyone. This is just my own personal thing, so I don't know if it's super relevant, but
I mean, it's a human experience, right? I'm sure it's relevant to some people. So keep going.
Yeah. So, but I think so it's like humility. It's being open to is exposure therapy, being open to pain. Um, and then it's doing it enough where you do get accepted and you do get someone who likes you back. And then
And
you're
then the
like,
wins.
yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, the rejections actually don't matter. And
Yeah, when the upside could be so special.
yeah, you just have to have faith sometimes and persevere to get to that point. But I remember, like, with the interview I was talking about with the mom who lost her son, like that day, I was just standing outside my apartment asking people for interviews. I must have gone through like 20 people, which is like more than um, usually it's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 and someone will say yes. So I went through like 20 people and I was just like, wow, today must really suck. And but that day I was just so committed. I had just worked out. I had done deadlifts, so I was just like,
I'm ready.
let's go. But looking back, it was like, I'm so glad those people said no, because I wouldn't have met her if they had said, if one of them said yes. So maybe that's another way you can look at rejection, is that like
redirection.
Yeah, if you can trust that that closed door just means there's another better door open for you, and you just have to have faith. You'll be like thankful for the rejection. Thank you. Now go fuck yourself, but thank you. No, I'm kidding.
Isn't that a funny way to approach it? Just like, imagine you go out to, just thinking, imagine you go out to like a bar and a girl like shuts you down and you just go, thank you, and walk off.
Well, it's tough because, I have an ego, and hey, look at me, I have 100,000 followers on this and that. Like, you don't know, and it's like and I have to be conscious of that, and I have to be like, and so you know what? In a way, that's why in a way I'm like, I will never stop, even if I have whatever, this gets somewhere, whatever, one day, I will never stop doing these free interviews, because it's important to to humble oneself.
Yeah. Stay humble, King.
Have someone just, not give a shit about you. Like, sorry, not that. That sounds kind of self-defeating, but
No,
like,
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It can be said in a positive way. Like,
yeah. Once you have a big headed about it, I think the art's going to suffer.
You spoke about faith a lot in this, you speak about it a lot, and it comes through in your content. How has faith impacted your life, and what was your story around building a faith? Because I'm not religious in any form. I'm naturally spiritual, so I'm always really curious to hear about people who have gone down a specific path of faith and what led them there and why.
I think for a long time I was kind of lost. I was doing things that, chasing things like pleasure and approval, and gosh, it's always so hard to talk about this because it's such a big thing. But I think basically I was lost, and now I'm found. I think we all kind of inherently, fundamentally seek some truth within ourselves that helps us like navigate through life. And for me, that has been Jesus, that has been God, that has been, I don't want to call it Christianity because Christianity gets such a bad name these days, but it's Christian principles, like true Christian principles, and not kind of
what
false.
are those principles? Just what are like the core things, if you could, rapid fire them?
Yeah, it's putting God at the center of your life, which is a approach that is really contrary to how we kind of approach life these days. We're a more individualistic society, at least in America. And even communal societies can put community at the center, but it's putting God at the center, which is something that even as I'm saying now feels kind of weird to say, but it's like,
there you go.
It's putting God at the center and figuring out for yourself what that means in your life.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, how does that look for you? Like, how does that manifest in your world?
Kind of like everything. In the morning, it's like, okay, wake up. It's part of my morning routine to like spend some time in prayer and contemplation and reading the Bible. And that's like a sacrifice of my time. It's practicing celibacy when my flesh doesn't. But my spirit's like, okay, this is actually what makes me feel most whole and integrated. And that was
So are you
like,
celibate at the moment?
I am practicing celibate. I'm not perfect. I'm a, human being, but generally speaking, yes. Trying to
Interesting.
save myself before marriage and all that stuff. But yeah,
I
so
just want to dig into this a little bit more because this is really curious to me.
yeah,
Do you, so I'm guessing were you not religious earlier on in your life, or, so this is something that's come on later in your life?
yeah.
So I'm guessing you had kind of have had
I've had a
various
lot
like
of sex
sexual,
in the past. Yes.
yeah. Okay. So what's the framework now? It's kind of like, I have brought God into my life. One of these elements is celibacy unless there's a deep, genuine, potentially, led to marriage connection with a woman or a man. I don't know. I'm guessing a woman. I think you're straight, right?
Yep.
Yep. And how have you approached that? Is that just complete cold turkey? Do you communicate that early, or like where's the frame for that for you?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm thinking like, needing to be in a position where I need to communicate it, but it rarely comes up these days. But I yeah, to be fully transparent, there's still a part of me that's like not fully understanding of why I'm doing this.
Mm,
Besides just being like, hey, this is what God is asking of me, and I'm trusting to Him
mm,
that this is the best thing for me, and it's
mm,
taken time. So that's like a mental acceptance, and it's taken time for my heart to accept it as well. Some things I've kind of been realizing over time is, one, like I have a tendency to get physical quickly, and that physical
mm,
intimacy can go way beyond the emotional, spiritual, and mental kind of compatibility, whereby then it becomes like imbalanced, and it
mm,
becomes maybe leading the other person on. They think like I'm more interested in them than I
mm,
am, but really I'm just like physically interested in them, which then is a
mm,
very selfish thing,
mm,
which, yeah, that's painful to accept, that I'm that selfish of a person to want to use someone for their physical whatever. And so it's kind of like place cards for me to not do that.
mm,
Um, and then it's just like, sex is a very powerful energy source. Now we're
mm,
getting into like, I don't know, Rick Rubin, or I don't know, some more philosophical kind of stuff, but like the universe is created as a sort of sexual act. Even if you want to think of the Big Bang, and everything just kind of
yeah,
came into
yeah, yeah.
existence. So that energy is super powerful, and if I'm kind of just disseminating that energy widely, I'm giving up my life force for
Mm,
uh, fleshly pleasure, which, um, at this point in my life where I've found like a deeper calling, that
mm,
seems unattractive to me.
mm, mm. Interesting. Because the reason I ask is I've been going through a similar mental process. However, I'm not very far down the path. There's a there's a part of me that says, be more focused, be more intentional, do less, focus my energy onto other things as opposed to sex, for example. Um, but when push comes to shove, I cave pretty quickly. So
Yeah, you're a
when you
dude.
mentioned it,
Like, you're a dude. Yeah, I get it.
yeah, yeah. So it's like maintaining control. And I was curious about maybe the frameworks that you have undertaken, because I think a lot of people probably go through the same thing of like, I should be having sex if I have the opportunity, especially as men. Like the idea that a man should reject a woman is very off.
It
like
makes
out of
almost no
character.
sense. It almost seems
Yeah. So if like a woman's throwing themselves at you and you are attracted to them and you're in a scenario where it can lead to something, just the ability to say no just goes against so much of your core being.
like nature almost.
Yeah. So I'm yet to find a way to, in those moments, not engage. And I think personally, and I think you're a bit further down this path than I am, and I don't have the religious framework to kind of push me back in line. It's not even getting yourselves into those situations in the first place
Yep.
that I think is the key.
It's
So not
the key.
not going out on dates, not inviting women back to your house,
I think if you want dates, don't invite him back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Just like not putting yourself in any scenario where there's a potential for intimacy to develop, unless you are like, fuck yeah, this is the one that I want to pursue.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like it's if you have two people, humans come together in a closed situation environment, it's going to lead to sex. Like,
yeah,
because that's just how nature works. But
So-
I would say it's like, one, if you don't quite have the spiritual or philosophical or mental framework yet, then sometimes you just have to set like a container and be like, hey, for the next month, next 2 months, next 3 months, it's like a fast, right? And then at some point through that experience, you'll learn the fruits of what you're doing. So that's one alternative, one thing. But the other thing is like, there needs to be something that what's the why, right? There needs to be something that's like worth it, that's worth sacrificing sex for, because it's got to be worth it. Sex is, so. And I think the other thing is like, we're at least in America, and I'm guessing in Australia too, we're a much more sexualized society now, right? With porn and everything, and then with like whatever Instagram and models and stuff. And so I think the starting base now is just a lot different than what it was before. We think it's like normal to have our sexual appetites so whetted, but maybe it's not.
The reasons why, I mean, for me, that I would like to go down this path is that I think, and this just to make it clear, I am not doing this. I'm not practicing what I preach in any stretch, but I'm hoping at some point something clicks and I begin to. But the long-term value in life comes from deep connections with maybe less people, right? Depth comes from focus. You can't be focused on the few if you're giving your energy to the many. And that applies in everything, not just sex. So if I want to, and that ties into my goal is to live the most happy, inspired, impactful, content life possible. So if I want to do that, and deep relationships are a part of that, and my energy is distracted, I don't then have the space to give to the people who are of value, that deep value. So those relationships become non-starters. So that's been the idea. However, the challenge I have is in the time where I haven't met somebody who potentially fits that bill. I'm just like, I'm going to go to this and I'm going to go to this. And what about this? And I'm just like, as opposed to going, no, hold on, bring it in, focus on my core missions, my goals, the things I want to achieve, use that sexual energy in things that are more productive until someone who is worthy of that energy comes by. That's the idea in my head. And this is just only intellectual because I do not do this yet.
So you're like, how much do you believe in that idea? how much do you believe that that's the truth of how the universe works or life works?
Depends on the day, to be honest. Depends on the day. I mean, I think at a core of it, it makes sense to me. And, emotionally, there's an emptiness in casual interactions that I feel more strongly these days than I ever used to. But old habits die
You know
hard, right?
yourself better now, and
Yeah, old habits die hard. So we'll see. But so yeah, that was why I was very curious about your consideration of celibacy.
yeah, I mean, I think part of the artistic pursuit and the creative pursuit and whatever it is that we're doing, whatever you call this, personal integrity is of the utmost importance to creating good content. Good, sorry, good content, good art, good content. And I don't know. I think I don't think that's realized enough. So, um, I think you could just pay attention to check in with yourself after these, whatever it is that you do. And there's no judgment here. It's just being honest with yourself of like, oh, that thing happened. How do I feel today? Has it made me feel more integrated or more disintegrated? Every single act we do is one or the other. There's no middle ground.
I
And if
like that.
if it's disintegrated, then all right, fine. It is what it is. Do I want to keep doing that? If I do, okay, fine, whatever. But if it's like, no, I actually don't want to do that disintegrated thing. I want to try to do an integrated thing. Then you just begin the process of trying, and maybe you will fail and you will figure it out. But I think it's worth at least giving a shot of like, oh, this actually makes me feel more whole.
I like that. Yeah, you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. No decision is just keeping you in the same space.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to, I'm conscious of your time. I want to bring it back up a little bit because we've gotten quite deep. There's a couple of questions on just your video creation content strategy that I'd like to ask you. Like what when you're planning out the way you develop your content, like what is your strategy at the moment? Like what are you trying to achieve? What are you doing?
Yeah. So like more tactically speaking.
Yeah, tactically, what are you doing? What key points are you trying to hit?
Yeah. So, I've achieved success on the shorts. And so I want to be able to continue to do that. But, I started with long form YouTube. Now I'm coming back to long form YouTube. And so it's trying to get consistent long form and short form content out. That's good quality, if not just better quality over time. It's not always going to be good, but so it's almost like juggling two balls at once. It's like, okay, I got to think of the shorts and then I got to prepare for the longs. And it's just kind of like planning ahead. Besides that, I don't know if I have too much more strategy.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of just let it be what it is. What about the shorts? What about the successful shorts have made them successful?
First 2 seconds, first 2, 3 seconds, first 1 to 3 seconds are super important. And it'll be different for each short, how you make that, entertaining or whatever. You want to have a story. You want to have and this goes for long and short, but for short, it's particularly more pronounced because it's a short, but it has to have some sort of like, what's the purpose of why I'm watching this? Like, what's the ending? Unless it's just like a baby and a puppy and they're just really cute, then that's fine. But if you're making these kind of conversational, kind of deeper things, it's like, is he trying to make a point about something? All right. And that's the story. Cause then like people have something to latch onto in the comments section. They're like, oh, okay, this is what I think about that. But if it's just like a moment between two people and they kind of just like talk and it's entertaining, but there's no real like hook and no story, it's going to be limited in its success. And then you want to be able to create something whereby it's like the moment the video starts playing, you can't turn away.
Mm.
And that's just like editing and storytelling and yeah, I'm still trying to figure out, it's like I make shorts where it's like I think it's going to be good and then it's like it's not good, and then I learned why. Like I remember made this video. I went to Morocco recently and I was doing like interviews there, and I met this guy who like sang horribly, and I made a video out of it, and I thought it was really entertaining. But then looking back, I'm like, oh, it's only entertaining because I was there and I was talking with this guy and I
Yeah.
met him. But other people are watching and they're just like,
Poor singing.
I don't care that he's a bad singer. Like it's not relevant.
Yeah.
So you start to learn these things. Yeah.
For sure. Do you so what do you think makes your videos quality? So we kind of touched on them because you mentioned like make better quality videos. What quantifiably is better quality?
I mean, I think a lot of it depends on like the person's energy and personality on the video. Generally, the videos that do well are with interesting characters, and that's a little unavoidable. And then it's like what they're saying. If what they're saying is entertaining, if what they're saying is truthful, if what they're saying is enlightening or vulnerable.
So basically, it's got less to do with the edits and more to do with the content individually itself. So what would be like the 80-20 thing that would be most impactful for you as a content creator at the moment?
I mean,
to dig into?
It's tricky though, because like I do take some pride in my editing skills. And I say that because I can take a raw interview that someone would have been like, oh, there's nothing really there. But then in the edit, I make it come alive. Right. So sometimes editing can be really important. But the raw material.
Do you see that early?
I'm sorry?
Do you see that early? You're like, I've got enough here. I know I can turn this into a banger, even though other people might not see it.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, I don't think there's anything here. And I go back and I'm like, oh, wait, actually like there is something here. So I'm getting better at that over time. So there's a really interesting connection between like the interviewing and the editing, right? Like I'm trying to connect dots that are like hard to kind of connect. But I'd say that the most important, usually the good indicator of whether I have something is like how engaged I am in the conversation. How interested am I in that conversation? If I'm engaged and interested, and during the time we were talking, I was pretty present. I wasn't looking at people passing by, stuff like that. Then I got something there. But it is amazing what you can. Editing can solve a lot of, can heal a lot of wounds, can clean up a lot of stuff. Like I make people look good because you can do a lot of cool things in the edit.
And how do you prepare for the content that you're creating? Because you mentioned you're preparing a lot for the long form, and like, what does that actually look like? What is that process?
For long form, it's going to be writing, which is something that is difficult.
So you are a writer.
Yeah, but not in the sort of novel sense, more kind of like a visual sense, a screenwriter, I guess. And that's just writing and rewriting and walking around my room and being like, what am I trying to say? What's the point of this? Is this any good? Stuff like that. That's like the writer's artist way stuff. With the interviews, it's just going out and doing the interviews and making sure I'm in a good headspace before I go.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And on the camera equipment, like what equipment do you use? So what's your stack like at the moment?
Yeah, my primary camera is a Sony A7 III with a Sigma 24-70 art lens, and then my B cam is a Sony A6400 with another zoom lens.
And microphones and stuff, what do you use?
Rode Wireless 2.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those. Hey, I want to just quickly rapid fire some things, and I'll get out of your hair. Are you down for that?
I'm like already getting kind of frazzled.
Yeah, no, you're crushing it, man. Don't even stress. There's been no problems on my end. What's your ideal morning and evening routine look like?
Right now, it's wake up, morning pages, shower, and then some Bible reading, prayer time. During the summer, it might be like a little run, a little
Mhm.
2 mile run just to get the blood flowing. But
Mhm.
uh, during the winter, I don't do that. And then the evening, I need to get better at this because sometimes I just keep working till like 30 minutes before bedtime, and that's not good. That's
Mhm.
how I burn out. And so I usually try to like at least an hour and a half before I want to fall asleep is when I stop,
Mhm.
and that'll be maybe reading a book, maybe some more like meditation, prayer, kind of quiet time, that kind of stuff. Maybe some Spider-Man. I've been really into Spider-Man 2 on a PS5,
Mhm.
so play a little bit of that.
Mhm. Just wind down and call it.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Um, if you could only recommend one book or podcast
the
or something
Bible.
for someone to, nice, nice. Why?
um, yeah. Besides the Bible,
It's
there's
not
this
actually a
book.
bad answer, to be honest.
No,
It's not
very
a bad answer
serious.
at all.
Very
Yeah.
serious. If you've never read that at all, it's worth just opening it. Uh,
Mm.
because it's the most influential book of all time. So it's worth to give it a
Mm.
gander.
Mm.
I'm reading this book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel like that's a
So that would
very,
be the most impactful book that you would get. One book. They can only have one book for their whole life. Is that
yeah,
the
or maybe
book?
like maybe a Hemingway book, like like The Sun Also Rises, or I don't know. I love Hemingway, but yeah, Man's Search for Meaning. I feel like that one is his perspective on life is fundamental.
And if someone could make one change in their life today to begin to live a life similar to yours and potentially move in the direction of successes that you've had, what would that be?
Besides go to church,
Ah.
I think honesty, just be as honest with yourself as possible. It's hard to be honest with yourself, not just because it's sometimes painful, but because we don't know what our deepest truths are. It's not super obvious, and sometimes it takes it takes time, it takes experience, and it takes. But I think without honesty, it's like you can't really do anything. Like if you don't know, oh, this is really who I am, and or these are what my flaws are, or this is what I really want, or that thing that happened today. Oh, this is what really is going on. So it takes a lot of time and reflection, and um, yeah. So I think if you're honest with yourself, you begin to have a compass of knowing where to go.
So work on finding your truth, whatever that looks like to you.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
And what do you think the meaning of life is?
Um, there are several answers that I think can all work. So
Mm-hmm.
one, I think to a certain extent there is no meaning of life. Life is a little bit meaningless, and I think there's some truth in that. We all die, and then nothing we do in this world gets taken on to the next. So, and then also just things happen randomly.
Mm-hmm.
Smartest person in the room can, good things happen to bad things happen to good people. So there isn't necessarily like a universal kind of whatever. So I just want to say that, and then, but if we don't take that nihilistic kind of view or whatever that's called, I think that if we look at the world, this is something I've been thinking about. If you look at this world and you look at nature, um, the thing that makes us continue to keep going is like our fruit.
Go on.
Like, like either the children we have or the impact we
Mm.
have. There's something. You look at a tree. The only way it keeps going is if it produces fruit. If
Mm.
something does not produce fruit,
It's
it's
not thriving.
useless.
Mm.
It's useless. It'll just die, and you can burn it up.
Mm.
And so I think what life is looking for is fruit.
Mm.
The Bible says that there will come a time when Jesus will come back, and he will separate the chaff from the wheat or something. Basically, like
Mm.
the useless parts and then the fruit. And so, what is that fruit? And from my conversations with people, I begin to see the fruit in people's lives. Um, and going back to Viktor Frankl, he's talking about suffering, the meaning of suffering, the meaning of life, and talking about how like um, for the people in the inmates in the camps who have nothing and have very little hope are suffering on a daily basis, excruciating. they still have meaning in their response to their suffering. Sorry, it's long-winded way of saying, but when I talk to people and I see them like working through their shit, I see them go through life with grace despite like the struggles they've had. When I see this mother trying to live her best life after her son has died senselessly, and I see people coming out of these obstacles, evils, things that should not have happened. I see them coming out of it better because they've become a certain type of person inside. Like whatever that is inside, that's the fruit. And that's my best indicator of why we're all here in the first place. Like, why would God even like, what God's God, he doesn't need us. Like, but why does he want to go about and do all this, create this whole thing? And like, there's been a lot of shit in our history. So like, why even bother? And I think it's because like these little moments of fruit within us are like so beautiful, and it makes all the bad stuff worth it, even if it's just like a little bit of fruit. So I think the purpose of this life is to grow fruit.
I again, not being specifically religious, I am very curious about it, and I came across this idea that really resonated with me around this, which was so the idea that God is creation, God creates. So therefore we are in our most godlike state when we are creating. And everything you see in the world around us is an act of creation. And if you do that creation with intent and love, it's the closest to God you can get in your day-to-day existence.
Yes. I think that's true. I think though, you just have to be really careful about what you're describing as creation. Because I think when we think about creation, we think about like an artist creating a painting, or we think about a lot about artists. But creation,
Could be anything.
Creation and creativity can be many things.
Yeah, be a building. It could be a community. It could be, a child. It could be everything.
The relationship you're forming with somebody. It could be the way you're evolving that relationship.
Well, I appreciate your time, Eric. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you so much for it. And keep doing amazing work. You're very inspiring with the work you're doing, and it comes out in your content. So
Appreciate
thank you.